Here we go. We're going to jump right into this. We have, as you know, a very special guest today, and he is a busy man, but he has taken some time out of his schedule to meet with us today. Nick told me once that he was never too busy to talk to Remax agents, and that is um, absolutely the way Nick is. I'm not going to waste a lot of time introducing him, but I do want to tell you a few things. I've known Nick for many years. Nick has had two lifetimes at Remax. One many years ago, and then he left for a while. I think that was actually a wonderful thing for our company because he got to see our company from the outside, and I think he learned a lot. I think Nick would acknowledge that for sure. Nick is currently a real estate broker licensed, which is one of the best things to me about the Remax system is most of our leaders and all of our top leaders are currently real estate licensed brokers. Nick took some time off in 2019 while he was still under a non-compete to actually sell real estate and get back to his roots, which is, again, as you know, my philosophy. I still sell a little bit. I think we have to keep our feet in the ground, on the ground, and our roots where they belong. And Nick is certainly the epitome of that. Nick is a wonderful leader. He's got the responsibility of setting the vision for our company. And for my money, he's the best thing to happen to Remax in a long time. So with that, how do you follow that, Nick?
We're going to give it. Say, Ken, I got nothing. Hi, everybody, and bye, everybody. No, what a nice intro. Thank you. And hi, Robin. I see you there. A few familiar faces. Sorry about the echo. So I moved last week, and so I am recent off of selling a house and moving into a house. So it's a little echoey. My office is not all set up quite yet with my camera work. So I'm sitting in the dining room, but glad to join you this morning. I applaud you for doing these sessions as you come into 24. I'm going to give you maybe a couple of things on my opinion of what you can expect for 2024. Everyone wants my crystal ball, and so I'm going to do my best to share that with you. I have the chat open, though. If you want to ask any questions, throw something in there because I'd love to address what's on your minds as we go through this. I'm just going to spend a few minutes with you. So it's really interesting out there, right? With kind of the market the way it is. But I'll tell you what. The one thing I do know in my nearly 3 decades in this business, something happens every single year, no matter what interest rates are, no matter what the headlines are, people buy and sell houses. And so if you're nervous about a lot of the headlines or the market, take a deep breath because at the end of the day, people are going to buy and sell homes and they need top-notch professionals to help them do it. That's it. And so, I look around and, I obviously see all the headlines and I see people that are just talking about everything that shoulda, coulda, woulda, what's going to happen instead of focusing on what they need to do right now, which is help people buy and sell a lot of homes. There's something that I just absolutely love about Remax. People ask, and Ken mentioned that I was gone from the Remax organization for about 7 years. And people always ask, why'd you come back? And I said, quality of the Remax agent. And I mean that. You outsell your competition 2 to 1. You have twice as much experience. And we've moved from a momentum-based market to a skills-based market. And those that have the greatest amount of skill are going to win this. We've already seen a little bit of relief on interest rates. So my forecast in 2024 is rates are going to bump around probably in Q1, Q2 a little bit. But I think that we're going to see rates in the low 6s. I think we may even see it start with a 5 by third quarter of next year. And folks, there's crazy pent-up demand. We're still estimating there are around 5.5 million homes that were short in the United States. And there is an underlying demand that is there. And I just had my Keeping It Real show last week with Brian Buffini and Jared James. It was pretty fun. I thought Jared had a great answer because we're getting asked all the time, is now a good time to buy? And his answer is, it's always a good time to own. Everyone is paying for housing, period. Everyone is paying for housing no matter what. And it's better to build your wealth than somebody else's. So I love the cliche, you marry the house, you date the rate. We have certainly filled the refi pipeline over the last year. And I believe there's going to be between 4.6 and 4.8 million transactions next year compared to the 3.9 that we had this year. And so I think you're going to feel some acceleration after the spring. Move-up buyers are not coming to the spring market like they didn't in 23. 90% of homeowners, well, let me back up. 34% of homes don't have a mortgage. 90% of those that do have a mortgage are less than 5%. And of that, 50% are less than 3.5%. People are in love with their rate. And so we're not seeing the move-up buyers come to the market. But we're going to be talking less about interest rates by Q2. And we're going to be talking even more about inventory levels. They're still crazy slim. And it's why we're saying price appreciation. From October to November, the median sales price in the United States went down from 410,000 to 405,000. However, it's still 13,000 higher than it was a year ago. And so in most markets around the country, with the exception of some of the markets in California and on some of your Northeast markets, you're going to see low single-digit price appreciation. And that's why I think now is not only a good time to own, but a good time to buy, because you can always refinance, but you can't claw back that appreciation. So that demand is going to come out. So let's talk about all the lawsuits going on. As most of you know, we reached a settlement and we have preliminary approval from the courts on the class action lawsuit, which is really a great thing because it's not only protects us, but it protects every RE/MAX agent and every RE/MAX broker from any type of similar type lawsuit that comes forward. And you're seeing it right now. You're seeing these copycat lawsuits pop up all over in states, and they're going to name other co-defendants. Some of those that have popped up, we're working on getting stays in place. And once we start to get those, we'll start to see probably the ambulance chasers slow down a little bit. But you're going to see those continue to pop up. But rest assured, as a RE/MAX agent, you're protected from a similar sell side type of lawsuit. Now the question comes up, okay, what's going to happen to buyer agency, and are they going to uncouple commission rates? We don't know. And we'll find out probably in a year or so that the judge will provide his injunctive relief to the plaintiffs. We believe it could line up similar to our settlement provisions, which doesn't change anything in terms of uncoupling any type of the commission. But I will tell you this, we as RE/MAX, and I believe in buyer agency, I believe it's great for the consumer. I believe in the spirit of cooperation in this business. I think it also serves the consumer well. And there's so much to be discussed if they were to uncouple the buyer agency or the buyer commission side, which is what happens to first-time home buyers. Will it be a financeable closing cost? I mean, all those different things still have to be worked through. But what it's going to come down to is momentum-based or skill-based. And as long as you're skill-based, you currently negotiate your commissions with your sellers. And would you have to negotiate your commission rate with buyers? Maybe. But if you know how to establish your value, not much is going to change. And so we'll see what that looks like. But I tell people all the time, there's so much people, and I can say it, running around with their hair on fire. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen with this? Nothing's happening right now. Let's focus on what the business is today. And that hasn't changed. We just need to go find people that want to buy and sell. And I'll tell you, there are just two things that I really think you should focus on as you do your business plan for 24. Number one is, when I talk about skill-based, is invest your time in education. Get better. No matter how long you've been in this business, get better. But number two is the most important one that I think, which is, I know you're right-sizing your expenses, which you should in a time of contraction, but most people cut their marketing expense first, right? Because it's expensive and that's what we could. And you start to get invisible. And this is where I see agents get in trouble. Statistically, folks, 87% of agents that get a real estate license don't have it 5 years later. What's the first thing? When I got licensed 27 years ago, I can't even believe I say that, 27 years ago, what's the first thing that I spent money on? And for each one of you, signs, business cards, websites, flyers. I wanted to tell everybody that liked, knew, and trusted me that I'm in the real estate business. And so what happens is, whether you've been in the business 2 weeks, 2 years, or 20 years, We start cutting our marketing in a market like this, and we get invisible. And I think that's the biggest mistake you can make. With Max Tech powered by KV Core, the new design center, there's so much free marketing that you can do, and you have access to your sphere right here, easier than it's ever been to access your people. I think spheres have been ignored when we were in a momentum-based market because we were all crazy, multiple offers running around, and we weren't investing in our databases. And so if anything, moving into 24, we have to hunt for the business. It's going to come from our spheres and our databases, and we have to make sure to be out there telling everybody we are in real estate. And I will tell you, video, like rates have fallen a full percentage. Have you popped open your video and said, hey, everybody, it's Nick over here from Remax. You might be wondering what's going on with interest rates. If you were thinking about buying, but the rates went up, hey, they've come down, call me and let's chat about maybe you're in the market as a buyer again. We've got to be that voice of reason. Video is the number one engagement that consumers have. And so just by doing a couple of these things in marketing and telling your database that you are the voice of reason is going to make all the difference in the world in your production for next year. Okay, so let me look. Properties historically, how do we as an industry address, affordability? Yeah, affordability is going to continue to be at the forefront of challenges for first-time home buyers. Now, there's a couple things. We're going through in the next 25 years, like $120 trillion. Like it's a crazy number, guys, on the number one wealth transfer from the silent generation and the boomers that will happen. And so that's going to cause a lot of relief for people that maybe don't have the down payments. But the other thing too, on the buy side commission, you look at any market is 25 to 35% is first time home buyers. And we've done everything to support NARREP, NAR, EB, anything to serve, help serve underserved communities, drive their home ownership rates. And so I just don't see a scenario where the feds are going to put something in place that's going to make it even more difficult for first-time home buyers or underserved communities that are trying to drive home ownership rates. I just don't see that in our future. But I do believe in home ownership, and especially for different segments in the market that are well below the national average on home ownership, that we should do anything we can to support driving home ownership in those segments. And so that's another piece that I don't think is talked about quite enough. Okay, so I mentioned Republican, Democrats. Yeah, it doesn't matter. People still buy houses. Let's see, what else do we have in here? And by the way, unmute if you want to ask a question. I've got a few more minutes.
Nick, I'll ask a question while you're looking. I know you touched briefly on the lawsuits, and I know that there's a limited amount that you can comment on that because of the situation that we're in. But how do you think in the long run this is going to affect our business?
I don't. I think at the end of the day that consumers are willing to compensate professionals to help them buy or sell. Sure. And we get caught up in, well, is it going to change? And I remember dual agency and sub agency. Remember all of that? When I first got licensed, the number one reason for litigation in this industry was dual agency, that they were saying, hey, you can't be a fiduciary to both buyer and seller. And some states have changed it. It changed transparency for the consumer. It changed our agency agreements. It changed the way that we have to approach and explain who we work for. And as a global company, we get to see how business is done in other countries. And you take South Africa and New Zealand and Australia and places in Europe where it's buyer beware. They have no buyer agency. There's only one side to the commission or to the representation. And buyers don't have an equal opportunity as sellers do in those markets. And we see that. And we've worked an entire generation in this business to make sure that both buyers and sellers have the opportunity to be represented. And so that's where I just don't see that going away. I think we've got the most sophisticated real estate system of any country that we're in, and we're in 110 countries with over 146,000 agents. We've come a long way in making sure that consumers are represented. And so to see that all just go away overnight, I just don't see it. I don't. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I will tell you that I'm confident in saying that I just truly believe that buyers and sellers are going to engage real estate agents. And let me tell you a quick story. So, I recently sold my house. I built it 20 years ago. A real estate guy that lives in a house for 20 years, like that's unheard of. And uh, I fired my first agent, had her for 3 weeks and got rid of her. She was a momentum based agent. She didn't do anything, guys. She did nothing. And she told me that she just wanted to do more open houses and my house would sell. She priced it 91,000 more than what I wanted it priced at. Now, you all know it's usually the opposite. You're trying to tell the seller to come down in price because they think their house is special. And we had a lot of showings. She got a verbal offer for 2,000 more than what I wanted to sell it for. And she was like, nah, I think he's going to leave money on the table. And what was interesting, I hired the second agent, and yes, they were both Remax agents. I said this story to someone. I was on stage a couple of weeks ago, and someone yelled, "Well, you should have hired a Remax agent." I thought it was quite funny. Anyway, the second agent, you guys, the amount of skill based, she was absolutely incredible. Now, here's what was fun, and I ate this up. She made me sit through her listing presentation. She said she was a little nervous, but she said, I'm treating you like I do every single client, no different, even though I know you know this business. She had a great listing presentation. We priced it exactly where I thought it should be priced, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges that agents are having right now is pricing. And we were under contract in 4 days. But what was great is the way she timed everything the week before. We did not go on the market right away. She brought over a cleaning crew. And by the way, my house did not need cleaned. We're very tidy. But she said, okay, we bring this cleaning crew top to bottom. An hour later, the photographer showed up. Then the next day, the day before, actually, she had her home stager come and walk through the house with my wife and me. And she gave us some suggestions about move this chair here and rearrange this. And I thought it was staged perfectly, by the way. And then the next day, here comes a PDF at 9 a.m. that had all of her notes and her recommendations. Ding dong on my door. Here was a box of 40 moving boxes that had tape and wrapping, and it said compliments of Susie Wargin, Remax Alliance on the side. Every box had her face on it. And that is delivered intentionally after you get the staging report to say, hey, do you need some boxes to maybe move some things? Then the photographer came. And then at closing, we get finished. And she said, by the way, don't even wipe out the refrigerator. And I don't know about you. We moved out of our house, and I told you we're pretty tidy. After everything was moved out, it looked like a homeless shelter. It was disgusting. Like, I was like, have we ever cleaned this house in 20 years? Anyway, she brings her cleaning crew, and she pays for all of this. She brings her cleaning crew in, and it's top to bottom cleans when we move out, so we don't have to worry about it. I'm giving you just a couple of examples of things that were skill-based, service-based. And when I say she paid for all of this, my closing gift was a cool blanket, but a gift card for 2 hours of her handyman. Oh, and then, by the way, use her moving services. She partners with the local Mayflower affiliate, and you get 10% off. And also, when they come to give you the estimate, they brought more boxes with her face on them. And so moving saved me $1,000 to use her moving affiliate. So just great examples. And I know many of you do this, where we just didn't have to think of a thing when we moved. And she made it all just very seamless. Compared to the first agent that didn't do anything, it was night and day different. And so that's the type of skill base. Sorry, I ramble on all this, but it was just my most recent experience that I thought was a good reminder of we're no longer order takers. We are absolutely worth the penny, every penny that we negotiate for ourselves if you provide the service level. Where did she get the boxes? Sally asked. I don't know, but I'll find out, and I'll let Ken know. Guys, it was super cool the way it was wrapped and her face on it, and it had the little dividers that you could put glassware in. It was fantastic. Let's see. How will Remax change their national marketing to reinforce the importance of a realtor and how professional realtors differ from others? We did announce as part of our settlement that you have a choice as an office to be part of NAR or not. I think NAR will exist, but I think they've got kind of some uphill battles ahead. I think most people appreciate NAR for the code of ethics more than anything else. The discount on a Buick, I don't think comes to the top of the list for most people. And they'll still exist. But I think what we're considering, even as a brand and organization, is we're looking at providing a potential example of a code of conduct of how we make sure that RE/MAX stands out as the most professional agents. And so will we weave that into our creative campaigns on advertising? We'll see, more to come. But certainly the realtor trademark is something that is owned and distributed by NAR, not us. And so we don't use the term realtor within any of our advertising because that's a trademark that doesn't belong to us.
Can you said we can come off mute. May I ask a question? This is Erin.
Hi, Erin.
So, are there any works with NAR to kind of help with if their lawsuit goes forward and commissions have to be under the buyer's, say, a seller subsidy? I was speaking with a lender where at this point it still looks like that credit would be deducted from, say, closing help that would help the buyer with their closing costs. So if you have a buyer that needs a full 3%, and then trying to pay their agent, is there a way or language that could be written so that a buyer agent commission could be more of a credit to the broker instead of being counted against the buyer's closing help so that they're not harmed?
Yeah, and so that's more to come. And so that's where I don't see, even if they do uncouple how that buyer agency commission is paid, that's all going to be based on the judge's injunctive relief to the plaintiffs. And we don't expect that for a year. And so we're certainly not burying our heads in the sand by not preparing for what this might look like. But I also think that some are getting way too ahead of themselves. Right now.
Oh, yeah, we're seeing it now. We're seeing their no commission and reduced commissions already showing up.
Yeah, it's just, people rushing to panic, and they just don't need to. I mean, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed right now. And what I do believe, it's going to just create more transparency that will be in the marketplace, and it'll be within your disclosures, and some of the states will take a stab at modifying some of their documents. But until any of that takes place and actually gets in place for your business, I wouldn't focus on that. I would focus on how you do business today and helping people move forward. But the minute something like that is a major change, I remember IDX. Oh my gosh, you would have thought the sky was falling when it was. What do you mean these loser agents that don't have any listings are going to be able to put all my listings on their website and take all of my buyers? And right, they thought that was going to fundamentally change. The reality is we'll adapt to the business and we'll adapt for whatever rule changes come forward. But until those changes actually happen and get put in place, I wouldn't waste my time that I'm watching a lot of people waste time on, which is stuff that is the what if. And if it doesn't come to fruition, it's going to show that it was a waste of time. So I just wouldn't focus on it for right now.
Hey, Nick, it's Robin. How are you?
Hi, Robin. Good.
Good. Hey, all right, two questions. One, I'm going to piggyback on what Aaron asked. Since we are seeing reduced commissions already, are y'all working with the VA so that the veterans would be responsible for the commission? Because right now they can't.
Yeah, no discussion on that right now. I know Fannie and Freddie, there's kind of some initial discussions to say, like, is this a financeable? Is this a closing cost that can be rolled into a mortgage? And this is where I think the discussion kind of stops right there. But the reality is, let's say a $5,000 commission gets rolled into a 30-year mortgage. It's going to turn into a $40,000 or $50,000 expense. And so that's not in the best interest of the consumer. Mm-hmm. And we're in somewhat of a pay it forward, if you will, type of industry that I just believe at the end of the day, a seller hires an agent and pays them and just gives them permission to share. There's also something called referral fees that I think are an interesting loophole, if you will, to the whole scenario. And I saw this when I was leading for Remax, the state of Florida, during the Great Recession. That was a fun time, right? A few of you remember that. And commission rates were all driven by supply and demand. And you look back over 25 years, I have a spreadsheet of the commission rates for every single year, going back to 2000. And the people that think like there's been compression on commissions for 20 years are dead wrong. There was compression on commissions in a seller's market, but commission rates actually came up during buyers markets, and especially the Great Recession. I saw a flyer come from a builder, and remember builders in 2004, 5, 6, they wouldn't pay an agent a dime. They just said, drop your people off at the front door to the sales center and get out. And they started doing that again just a couple of years ago, or would pay you a flat $500. We had some that were $1. I mean, it was crazy. And then all of a sudden in 2010, I saw a flyer in Florida, 10% to a buyer's agent, and also a bonus of a 1-year lease on a Lexus or a Rolex watch. These builders were, and this is true, you guys, true, but these builders were desperate to find a buyer. And so at the end of the day, that's where I believe in cooperation. I think that that's going to continue to serve the consumer well, that they say, depending on the market, buyer or seller's market, you're going to create incentives for cooperation. And I think that that's going to continue to happen.
Well, the bigger problem with that is I know my fee of what I charge all my buyers. So if the seller's not sharing that with me, I cannot collect the difference from a veteran, someone who's using a VA loan.
Yep.
So we do need to work to get that changed to where under a VA loan, the buyer can be responsible for the difference in commission. And then it's up to us as to whether or not we want to enforce it or not. Because there may be times where we're working for free because you can't fire the buyer just because they're using VA loan.
Yeah, it makes sense. And you probably deal with more VA than the vast majority of people just based on your geography.
Well, also the fact I was a spouse for 21 years.
Yeah. Got it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't have a perfect answer for you, Robin, on that one. I think that's a great question. And I think that's a great point. So duly noted.
The other point is, in looking at all the graphs, it looks like the 10-year Treasury bond is almost back to where it was when they added the extra 1% gap onto the mortgages. Do you think that gap is going to be coming off anytime soon?
I do. I think that we're going to see some of that. Some of that margin is going to fall off in 24. I don't think that margin is going to fall off till maybe third quarter or fourth quarter of next year. But happy holidays next year. I think fourth quarter is going to be wildly busy next year. And I think it'll get busier even before that, but it's our seasonality is going to look different next year. But I think you're absolutely right that there is additional margin that's baked into the rate. And not only will that fall, the rates will fall, but also that margin will as well. You got to look at it this way. We're coming into an election year, and this isn't about politics. Who cares on Republican, Democrat, right? We sell houses no matter what, every single year, administration. But the reality is they're going to want to prime the economy a little bit before an election year coming into fourth quarter. And real estate is between 18 and 20% of GDP in this country. And so we're going to want to see, I think there's going to be some level of intentional push on rates to go down so that they see the real estate market get a little fiery even before the election. And so that's all going to work well for us. Okay,
Thanks.
one more.
One more, folks. Make it good.
So I'll ask a question, Nick. My name's Frank McNew. So right on point, I think for 2024, just skill-based market. Also, don't let up on your marketing. I think that is perfect advice for this market going in. You just sold your house. You had a listing agent that had good skills. She had personalized marketing to make the experience very smooth for you and your wife. During the listing presentation, were there any things that stood out to you in her listing presentation that gave you that professionalism or that comfort that you're working with a true professional?
Yeah, I think the fact that the listing presentation was not canned, it was personalized for us. And so obviously doing a CMA compared to when I first started, like you had to sit down. I had to use top producer and enter every data point. And the ability for us to do a CMA is somewhat automated today. And she pulled in all the personalization of our home into the listing presentation on the first meeting. So she came locked, ready to go, where say the first agent just gave me this canned listing presentation, which is I can do a CMA, I can do this, I can do this. But the second agent, Susie, she was prepared to go right at pricing and had a pretty good picture of our entire neighborhood for the past 12 months. And so I think that stood out to me the most is she had never even been in our home. Now I've known her for a while, but she'd never been into my home before. And she said, now, of course, this is what I baked in just looking at your home from afar without seeing it. And so then, we talked about different adjustments, but I loved how it was personalized right out of the gate. And it was all about us. It wasn't all about her.
Personalized presentation, and she was prepared. Yeah, she was totally prepared. A second other quick question. Everything is being appealed, so there's no decisions yet. It's all going to go for another year or even longer before anything's really settled. So none of us should be worried about anything. With these copycat lawsuits, I've heard that they're trying to name agents or big teams that they think have big pockets in order to try and, get a settlement or something like that. Since RE/MAX has already made a settlement, does that blanket protect us, or are the copycat things something that could affect us later if there's things happening in Maryland, Virginia, or DC?
No, great question, Frank. So, the copycat stuff, whether it be at the agent, the team leader, or the broker level, it does protect you. And so, even though if for some reason within a state, a RE/MAX agent or broker is named, sure, there has to be a stay that's filed with the court system with where that's filed. But what we do think is how RE/MAX has been named in Atlanta and one in New York, and we're in process of filing those stays with the courts. And we believe that once these stays are accepted, once they find out about the settlement and understand, we hope that then the copycatters that will name any party to RE/MAX will likely slow down or go away because they know what the outcome is going to be. And so that was part of our settlement terms. And I think that that's a really important point. Now, will the appeals happen? Perhaps, or we could see the co-defendants that were remaining in the suit. We could see them try to settle, because keep in mind, these plaintiffs, if they settle based on your ability to pay. So our $55 million settlement, guys, that hurt a lot, but we had the ability in our cash reserves to pay it. They didn't want to make it any more because we just filed Chapter 11 and reorganized. They wouldn't get a dime. So there's a point at which these courts, when they're looking at settlements, they're not there to bankrupt companies because they won't get any money for their plaintiffs and the attorneys won't get anything. So they're trying to find that perfect sweet spot of how to make it painful, but how do they get money for the plaintiffs? And when in a class action scenario, you look at the total amount over $5.3 billion, they have to come up with a bond, which is 10%. So in order to appeal, the remaining co-defendants have to come up with $500 million to even be able to appeal. And we don't know the financials of every one of those companies, but we have a pretty good guess that that's going to be a tough number for all of them to come up with. And so they may not go to appeal. They may be working on settlements. We'll see.
Oh, okay. All right. Fantastic.
So what are the proceeds of these suits going towards? So what happens now and why we won't get we only have a preliminary approval is over the next year. This is where they send out to consumers within those markets. And you've seen television commercials. You've all probably received a card in the mail that says, did you buy a home between 2016 and 2022? You may be eligible for settlement. So they'll go around to consumers and get everybody to sign up to say, were you party to a sale, because you will get part of these proceeds. And so they have to build that up with consumers. So these monies go into an escrow account, the settlement fees, and then the total amount, depending on the number of consumers that come forward, then they distribute that accordingly back to those consumers. But they haven't even started that process yet. That's why this could take another year or two to get things final. But we expect the courts will probably be, somewhat in about a year back at us in terms
Nick,
of.
you've been really generous with your time. I want to make sure you're still okay because I know that
I'm taking up your entire meeting. Sorry about that. But
that's fine. Listen, this is a once in a rare experience. So we're fine if you are, but that's up to you.
yeah, just 2 more minutes and then I have to run. I love Craig's comment. Can't imagine how it would feel to be fired as a listing agent by Nick. Now, I have to say, the first agent, she is a dear friend of ours, and I've known her for over 20 years. So it was very amicable. It was, hey, I just don't think we're on the same page here, and I just think we need to go in a different direction. So it wasn't a you're fired. It wasn't anything like that. So it was okay. It was just different. But I'll tell you what, I tell the story, and it's not because I want to say anything negative about her, but I want to say that as a seller in this market, I'm hoping that sharing the story will make a difference in some agents to say, hey, rethink your service level. And two of my favorite books, The Nordstrom Way and the one about Ritz-Carlton, they're all about providing the service or the experience based on the unexpected needs. You fulfill the unexpected needs of a consumer and deliver on them before they even know that they need it. Like the boxes showing up. I know sounds like a dumb example. Some of you may already do it, but like moving boxes showing up on my step totally unannounced. It was exactly what we needed to start the process of moving. And so she fulfilled an unexpected need that I didn't even know that I had. And I went back. Ken mentioned I sold some homes in 2019 and 2020 while I was doing this job. I was so proud that year. I sold $5 million in real estate. I told the story in California, and somebody was like, oh, who'd you split a deal with? I went to Cleveland. I got a standing ovation. But I told my friends that came over to our house the other weekend, I said, you guys told me I was a 5-star agent. After my experience, I feel like a 3-star agent. Like I was not very good. But anyway, I share the story because rethink your service levels and how you can fulfill the unexpected needs of your buyer and seller and deliver on it before they even know what they need. And I'll tell you what, when you do that, I would have paid her double of what I paid her. It was just well worth every single penny. So the value is out there if you know how to demonstrate it. You just have to deliver on it.
I think sometimes we get so caught up in the procuring leads that we forget the customer experience that has to follow.
That's right. And we are not in the customer service business. We are in the experience business. You have to create an experience. And I told at the broker owner conference, any of you heard of the Savannah Bananas?
Yeah.
They are so cool. One of my friends, little 12-year-olds, showed me on TikTok the Savannah Bananas. They're a baseball team in Georgia. And they dance and have music while they're playing the game, and it's crazy. I'm actually going to go to a game this next summer. Somebody invited me that got tickets. Folks, their stadium holds 5,000 people. They have over 515,000 on the wait list. But the CEO of the Savannah Bananas, his 3 words that are the most powerful in business, and I'll leave you with this: you wouldn't believe. Do consumers talk about you and say, you wouldn't believe Aaron did this. I'm sitting here today saying, you wouldn't believe what Susie did on my home sale. And so that'll be my final comment for you today is as you plan for 2024. By the way, Brian Buffini said it, don't give up now because it's just going to start getting good in 2024. Like it is looking good for next year. It's going to feel better. It's going to look better. It's going to be better. But are you creating those you wouldn't believe moments that your clients are telling everybody about you because they wouldn't believe what you did for them? And so move into that skill-based you wouldn't believe for 2024. You're going to be wildly successful.
Well, Nick, I will let you go with this too. You have created for us you wouldn't believe experience at RE/MAX since you've returned. And
thank you.
I am so excited about your leadership. I feel like RE/MAX is really back on top of its game with you. And I appreciate your leadership and the enthusiasm that you bring to it. And it just feels like the old Remax to me. And it's just great. It's awesome.
Well, thank you, Ken. It's a big order. It's a big network, but you guys are the ones that have made this network. Certainly not me, but I do appreciate the nice comments.
Yeah. Well, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you spending this much time with us. It is extraordinarily generous, and we look forward to seeing you at R4.
Good. Yeah, come see us R4s later this year. It's March 24th through the 28th. People ask why it's late. The NFL did not check with us on the Super Bowl schedule and the fact that we were going to be there. But here's what I think is going to be fun. We're at Mandalay Bay, and we're going to be able to go outside a little bit. We have pool parties planned and some things that we're not just stuck inside. I think it'll be a fun year. Ellen DeGeneres is our keynote on the opening session. I think she's going to play a game with a couple of agents that we'll call out of the audience and bring up on stage. And it'll be a lot of fun. So I hope to see you all then.
Good. We'll see you there. And thanks again, Nick. We really appreciate you.
Okay.
Thank you,
take care,
Nick.
Thank you,
everyone.
Nick. And I will tell everybody before you